I'm fine, really. Just clumsy today. Zara Hughes forced a smile as she adjusted her sleeve to cover the dark bruises on her wrist. The middle-aged customer at table 6 looked concerned, but she couldn't afford his pity. She needed his tip. "Coffee refill, sir?" she asked, her voice steady despite the pain shooting through her ribs with every breath. Benjamin Cross studied the young black woman standing beside his table. 3 weeks of coming to this small Atlanta diner, and he'd noticed everything. How she covered marks with makeup, how she flinched when anyone moved too quickly, how her hands shook when she thought no one was looking. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked gently. Zara's practiced mask almost slipped. Behind her tired brown eyes, he saw something that made his chest tighten. Fear mixed with desperate hope that someone, anyone, might actually care. "Just tired from working double shifts," she whispered, glancing nervously toward the kitchen. "My daughter needs new school supplies." Benjamin's jaw clenched. He was one of the richest men in America, sitting in a diner worth more than most people's homes, watching a woman slowly breaking apart while serving him coffee with a smile. He didn't know her story yet, but he was about to change everything. If you're someone who appreciates stories about human strength and unexpected kindness, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. Sometimes help comes from the most surprising places. The alarm clock buzzed at 4:30 a.m., just like every other morning for the past 2 years. Zara Hughes opened her eyes slowly, immediately feeling the familiar ache in her left shoulder, where Derek had grabbed her the night. She lay still for a moment, listening to his heavy breathing beside her, calculating how much time she had before he woke up. 15 minutes. That was usually enough. Zara slipped out of bed as quietly as possible, her bare feet making no sound on the cold wooden floor. She moved like a ghost through the small apartment, gathering her work uniform and makeup bag before retreating to the bathroom. The door didn't have a lock anymore. Derek had broken it 3 months ago during one of his rages, but she closed it anyway and turned on the shower to muffle any sounds. In the harsh fluorescent light of the bathroom mirror, the damage was clear. A purple bruise wrapped around her left wrist like a bracelet. Another mark colored her collarbone where his fingers had pressed too hard. The worst was the tender spot on her ribs that made breathing painful. Derek had been particularly angry last night because dinner was 5 minutes late. Zara reached for her concealer, a skill she had perfected over the past year. Foundation first, then concealer, then powder to set it all. She had watched dozens of YouTube tutorials, not for beauty, but for survival. The makeup artists probably never imagined their techniques being used to hide evidence of the war happening behind closed doors. "Mommy," a small voice whispered through the door. Zara's heart jumped, but she kept her voice calm. "Just getting ready for work, baby. Go back to bed." "I can't sleep. I heard yelling again last night." The words cut through Zara like glass. 5-year-old Stella was too young to understand what was happening, but old enough to know something was wrong. Zara finished applying her makeup quickly and opened the door to find her daughter standing in the hallway, clutching her stuffed elephant. "It was just the TV, sweetheart," Zara lied, kneeling down to Stella's level. Her daughter had inherited her father's light brown eyes and her mother's determined chin. She was beautiful, smart, and deserved so much better than this life. "Are you hurt, Mommy?" Stella asked, reaching up to touch Zara's cheek with tiny fingers. "I'm fine, baby. Just tired." Zara forced herself to smile. "You need to get some sleep before school. Mrs. Patterson will be here soon to take you." Stella nodded, but her eyes remained worried. At 5 years old, she was already learning to read the signs, to gauge moods, to make herself small when necessary. It broke Zara's heart. "I love you, Stella. Remember that, okay?" "I love you too, Mommy." Zara walked her daughter back to her small bedroom, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. Stella's room was the only bright spot in their apartment, filled with drawings she had made at school, a few toys Zara had managed to buy from thrift stores, and books they read together every night when Derek wasn't home. By 5:15 a.m., Zara was dressed in her server uniform, black pants, white button-down shirt, and non-slip shoes. She grabbed her purse and keys, said a silent prayer that Derek wouldn't wake up, and slipped out of the apartment. The morning air was cool against her skin as she walked the 6 blocks to Mel's diner. She couldn't afford a car, and the bus didn't run early enough for her opening shift. The walk gave her time to transform herself from the frightened woman in the apartment to the cheerful server customers expected to see. Mel's diner had been a fixture in this Atlanta neighborhood for 40 years. It wasn't fancy. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and a jukebox that played the same songs from the 1980s. But it was clean, the food was good, and the regular customers tipped well enough to keep Zara afloat. "Morning, sunshine," called Rosa, the cook, as Zara entered through the back door. Rosa was a 60-year-old Puerto Rican woman who had worked at the diner for 15 years. She had kind eyes and never asked questions when Zara showed up with new bruises. "Morning, Rosa. Coffee ready?" "Always is for you, mija." Rosa poured Zara a large cup of black coffee, no sugar. Zara had trained herself to like it that way because sugar cost extra, and every penny mattered when you were trying to save enough money to escape. The diner opened at 6 a.m. and the first customers were usually construction workers grabbing coffee and donuts before heading to job sites. Zara moved through her routine automatically, wiping down tables, filling salt and pepper shakers, making sure the coffee was fresh. The repetitive tasks helped calm her mind and prepare her for the performance she would have to give for the next 10 hours. At exactly 7:30 a.m. he walked in. Zara had noticed him 3 weeks ago because he was different from their usual customers. Well-dressed but not flashy, with an expensive watch that he tried to hide under his sleeve. He was probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and intelligent green eyes that seemed to notice everything. He always sat at table 6, always ordered the same thing, black coffee and wheat toast, and always left a $20 tip on a $5 bill. "Good morning," Zara said, approaching his table with the coffee pot. "Your usual?" "Please." He smiled, but there was something in his expression that made Zara uncomfortable. Not in a threatening way, but like he was studying her, trying to solve a puzzle. Benjamin Cross had been coming to this diner for 3 weeks, and each visit confirmed what he suspected. Something was very wrong in this young woman's life. As the CEO of Cross Industries, he had learned to read people, to notice details that others missed. With Zara, the details painted a disturbing picture. The first week, he had noticed how she held herself carefully, like someone in constant pain. The second week, he had seen the way she flinched when another customer accidentally bumped into her. This week, he could see the subtle signs of makeup covering bruises, the way her sleeves were pulled down to her wrists despite the warm weather. "How long have you worked here?" Benjamin asked as Zara poured his coffee. "About 2 years," she replied, her professional smile never wavering. "Do you like it?" Zara paused. It was an odd question from a customer. "It's a good job. Steady work, nice people." Benjamin nodded, but he could hear the careful neutrality in her voice. She was giving him the answer she thought he wanted to hear, not the truth. As the morning progressed, Benjamin watched Zara work. She was efficient, kind to every customer, and never seemed to stop moving. But he also noticed how she favored her left side, how she winced when she reached up to clean the high shelves, and how her hands trembled slightly when she thought no one was looking. Around 10 a.m., a regular customer, an elderly man named Frank, stood up too quickly and accidentally knocked into Zara as she passed with a tray of dishes. It was a minor collision, barely a bump, but Zara's reaction was immediate and telling. She dropped the tray, dishes crashing to the floor, and stepped back with her arms raised defensively in front of her face. The entire diner went quiet for a moment. Frank looked mortified, immediately apologizing and offering to help clean up. But Benjamin's attention was focused on Zara's face. For just a second, her mask had slipped, and he had seen pure terror in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," Zara said quickly, dropping to her knees to collect the broken pieces. "I'm just clumsy today." "Don't worry about it, honey," Frank said gently. "Accidents happen." But Benjamin knew it wasn't clumsiness. It was the reaction of someone who had learned to expect violence from unexpected contact. As Zara cleaned up the mess, Benjamin made a decision. He had come to Atlanta to check on one of his company's manufacturing plants, planning to stay for just a few days. But this changed things. He couldn't leave knowing that this young woman was in danger. When Zara brought his check, Benjamin left his usual $20 tip plus his business card. "If you ever need anything," he said quietly, "anything at all, please call me." Zara looked at the card. Benjamin Cross, CEO, Cross Industries, and her eyes widened slightly. She had heard of Cross Industries. Everyone had. It was one of the largest companies in the country. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Sometimes help comes from unexpected places," Benjamin said, standing to leave, "and sometimes good people need someone to believe in them." As he walked toward the door, Benjamin turned back. "Take care of yourself, Zara. You deserve better than whatever situation you're in." Zara stood frozen, holding the business card, watching this stranger walk out of her life as suddenly as he had entered it. She didn't know what to think. Was he genuine? Was this some kind of trick? Could she trust a man she barely knew? But as she looked down at the card in her trembling hands, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. For the rest of her shift, Zara couldn't stop thinking about Benjamin Cross and his unexpected offer of help. She had become so used to facing her problems alone that the idea of someone caring about her welfare felt almost impossible to believe. When her shift ended at 4 p.m., Zara walked home slowly, taking the long way to give herself time to think. She still had 4 hours before Derek expected her home, which meant 4 hours when she could breathe without fear. She stopped at the small park where she sometimes brought Stella on weekends. Sitting on a bench, she pulled out Benjamin's business card and stared at it. What would happen if she called him? What kind of help could he possibly offer? And more importantly, what would Derek do if he found out? The questions swirled in her mind as she watched children playing on the swings, their laughter a reminder of the childhood she wanted to give Stella. One filled with joy instead of fear, safety instead of violence, hope instead of despair. Zara folded the business card carefully and tucked it into the deepest pocket of her purse. She wasn't ready to call yet. Wasn't sure she would ever be ready. But for the first time in a long time, she had options. And sometimes having options was enough to keep going for another day. 3 days had passed since Benjamin Cross had left his business card, and he had returned to the diner each morning, sitting at the same table, ordering the same breakfast. Zara found herself both anticipating and dreading his arrival. There was something unsettling about having someone pay such close attention to her, even if his intentions seemed kind. This morning, as she approached his table with the coffee pot, she noticed he was reading a newspaper, the business section. The headline was about Cross Industries acquiring another company, and there was a small photo of Benjamin in an expensive suit, shaking hands with other executives. "Big news day?" Zara asked, pouring his coffee and trying to sound casual. Benjamin looked up from the paper and smiled. "Just keeping up with what the competition is doing." He folded the newspaper, hiding his own photo. "How are you today, Zara?" She was surprised he remembered her name. Most customers didn't bother to learn it, even the regulars. "I'm fine, thank you." The automatic response came out before she could think about it. "Are you?" Benjamin asked quietly, and there was something in his tone that made Zara pause. She studied his face, looking for signs of the false concern she had learned to recognize in people who asked, but didn't really want to know the answer. But his green eyes held only genuine worry and patience. "I should get back to work," she said finally, stepping away from his table. "Of course, but Zara?" She turned back to look at him. "The offer I made still stands. No strings attached, no expectations. Sometimes people just need to know they're not alone." As Zara moved on to the next table, her mind wandered back to the previous night. Derek had been in one of his moods again, angry about money, about work, about everything that went wrong in his life. She had learned to recognize the warning signs, the way his jaw clenched when he came home, the way he slammed doors just a little too hard, the way his voice got quiet and controlled before the storm hit. She had been washing dishes when he started in on her. "You're worthless, you know that?" he had said, his voice low and dangerous. "Can't even keep this dump of an apartment clean, can't cook a decent meal, can't do anything right." Zara had stayed quiet, focusing on the dishes, knowing that arguing would only make things worse. But her silence had angered him more. "Don't ignore me when I'm talking to you." Derek had grabbed her wrist, twisting it until she gasped in pain. "You think you're better than me? You think working in that pathetic diner makes you something special?" The bruise on her wrist was fresh this morning, hidden under layers of concealer and a long-sleeved shirt despite the warm Atlanta weather. "Earth to Zara," Rosa called from the kitchen, breaking her out of the painful memory. "Table 3 needs their check." Zara shook her head, refocusing on the present. She delivered the check to table 3, cleared 2 tables, and started a fresh pot of coffee. But throughout her tasks, she found her gaze drifting back to Benjamin, who seemed to be watching her with the same careful attention. Around 11 a.m., during the brief lull between breakfast and lunch rush, Benjamin approached the counter where Zara was organizing the condiment station. "Can I ask you something?" he said softly. Zara glanced around the diner. Rosa was busy in the kitchen, and there were only 2 other customers, both absorbed in their phones. "I guess," she replied, not meeting his eyes. "Do you have children?" The question surprised her. "Why do you ask?" "You have the look of someone who's fighting for more than just herself." Zara's hands stilled on the ketchup bottles. How could this stranger read her so accurately? "I have a daughter," she said quietly. "Stella. She's 5. What's she like?" Despite herself, Zara smiled. Talking about Stella always made her feel lighter. "She's amazing, smart as a whip, loves books, wants to be a teacher when she grows up. She draws me pictures every day before school." "She sounds wonderful. You must be very proud." "I am." Zara's voice was soft with love. "She's the best thing I've ever done." Benjamin nodded. "Children change everything, don't they? Make you want to be better, do better." "Yes," Zara whispered. And suddenly her eyes were filling with tears she couldn't afford to shed. "Not here, not now." Benjamin reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I know you don't know me, and you have no reason to trust me. But I'd like to help, if you'll let me." Zara stared at the envelope, her heart racing. "I can't accept money from you, I don't even know you." "It's not money," Benjamin said gently. "It's information, resources. Numbers you can call if you ever need them. Places that can help keep you and your daughter safe." Zara's hands trembled as she looked at the envelope. The idea that someone could see her situation so clearly was both terrifying and oddly comforting. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care about a stranger?" Benjamin was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight of personal experience. Because everyone deserves to feel safe in their own home. Because children shouldn't have to grow up afraid. And because sometimes when you have the power to help, staying silent makes you part of the problem. Before Zara could respond, the lunch crowd began to arrive, and she had to return to work. But she slipped the envelope into her apron pocket, feeling its weight throughout the afternoon. The rest of Benjamin's visit passed in a blur of taking orders, serving food, and refilling drinks. But Zara was acutely aware of his presence, the way he observed not just her, but the other customers, the staff, everything around him. There was an intensity to his attention that should have made her uncomfortable, but instead, it made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in years. When Benjamin left his usual generous tip and headed for the door, he paused beside the counter. "Take care of yourself, Zara. And remember, you're stronger than you know." After he left, Zara found herself going to the window to watch him walk down the street. He moved with confidence, like someone accustomed to being in control of his surroundings. She wondered what his life was like, what kind of problems a billionaire CEO could possibly have, and why he was spending his mornings in a small neighborhood diner instead of in some fancy office building. During her afternoon break, Zara retreated to the small employee restroom and carefully opened the envelope Benjamin had given her. Inside were several pamphlets about domestic violence resources, a list of safe houses in the Atlanta area, and a card for a legal aid society that specialized in helping women escape abusive relationships. There was also a handwritten note. "Zara, these people have helped many women in situations similar to yours. They understand that leaving isn't as simple as walking out the door. They can help you plan, prepare, and stay safe. You don't have to do this alone. BC." Zara read the note 3 times, her hands shaking. This stranger had somehow recognized her situation without her saying a word about it. He had taken the time to research resources, to write a personal note, to care about what happened to her. But caring and helping were 2 different things, and Zara had learned the hard way that accepting help often came with strings attached. What did Benjamin Cross really want from her? What would he expect in return? She folded the pamphlets carefully and hid them deep in her purse, next to his business card. She couldn't take them home. Derek went through her things regularly, and finding these would trigger the kind of rage that might end with her in the hospital. As her shift ended and she prepared to walk home, Zara's mind was spinning with possibilities and fears. For the first time in months, she had concrete information about how to leave Derek. But she also knew that the most dangerous time for an abused woman was when she tried to escape. The walk home felt longer than usual, each step taking her closer to the apartment where Derek would be waiting. He had been laid off from his construction job 2 weeks ago, which meant he was home all day, drinking and building up resentment that he would take out on her the moment she walked through the door. Zara stopped at the corner store to buy milk and bread for tomorrow's breakfast, using the last few dollars from her tip money. As she waited in line, she overheard 2 women talking about a local news story. Another woman killed by her ex-husband after filing for divorce. "I don't understand why she didn't just leave sooner," one woman said. "It's not that simple," the other replied. "These men, they make threats. They isolate their victims, make them financially dependent. Leaving can be more dangerous than staying." Zara paid for her groceries and walked the final 2 blocks home, the women's conversation echoing in her mind. They were right. Leaving wasn't simple. Derek had made sure she had no savings, no credit, no family support. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19, and Derek had systematically driven away any friends she might have confided in. But now she had information. She had resources. And for the first time, she had someone who seemed to understand her situation without judgment. As Zara climbed the stairs to her apartment, she could hear Derek's voice through the thin walls, already raised in anger about something. She paused outside the door, taking deep breaths and preparing herself for whatever mood he was in. Before turning the key, she thought about Benjamin's note. "You don't have to do this alone." For 2 years, she had believed that she did have to do it alone. That there was no way out, no one who would understand, no safe place to run. But maybe, just maybe, that was starting to change. Zara opened the door and stepped into her apartment, carrying with her a small seed of hope that she was determined to protect and nurture, no matter what happened next. The morning started like any other, but Zara knew something was different the moment she woke up. Derek was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone with an expression that made her stomach clench with fear. "You need to call in sick today," he said without looking at her. "I can't," Zara replied carefully. "I'm covering Rose's morning shift. She has a doctor's appointment." "I don't care. You're not going anywhere." Zara sat up slowly, every muscle in her body tense. "Derek, I need this job. We need the money, especially now that what?" His voice was dangerously quiet as he turned to face her. "Now that I'm unemployed? Is that what you were going to say?" "No, I just meant—" "I know exactly what you meant." Derek stood up, and Zara instinctively shrank back. "You think you're better than me. You think because you have a job and I don't, that makes you important. That's not true, Derek. I would never... Don't lie to me. His voice exploded through the small bedroom, and Zara heard Stella whimper from the next room. I saw you yesterday, talking to that customer at the diner, laughing with him, flirting. Zara's blood ran cold. How could Derek have seen her at work? I wasn't flirting with anyone. I was just doing my job. Your job is to serve coffee, not to chat up rich men in expensive suits. The description made Zara's heart race. Derek had been watching her. Somehow he had seen her talking to Benjamin. He's just a regular customer, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I talk to all the customers. That's what good service means. Derek's hand shot out and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. Don't play games with me, Zara. I know what I saw. You were smiling at him like you never smile at me. I smile at you, she whispered, though they both knew it was a lie. She couldn't remember the last time she had genuinely smiled at Derek. No, you don't. You look at me like I'm some kind of monster. His grip tightened on her face. Maybe I should give you a real reason to look at me that way. The threat hung in the air between them. Zara could hear Stella moving around in her room, getting ready for school. In 30 minutes, Mrs. Patterson from down the hall would knock on the door to walk Stella to the bus stop. Zara had to get through the next 30 minutes without escalating things. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You're right. I shouldn't have been so friendly with the customer. I'll be more professional. Derek studied her face for a long moment, then released her chin with a slight push that made her head snap back. You're damn right you will. And you're calling in sick today. I don't want you going to that diner anymore. Zara's heart sank. Without her job, she had no income, no independence, no chance of ever saving enough money to leave. Derek, please. If I call in sick without notice, they might fire me. Good. Find work somewhere else. Somewhere I can keep an eye on you. Before Zara could respond, there was a soft knock on the bedroom door. Mommy? Stella's voice was small and uncertain. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, baby, Zara called out, forcing brightness into her voice. I'll be right there to help you get ready. Derek's expression shifted slightly at the sound of his daughter's voice. For a moment, Zara saw a flicker of the man she had fallen in love with 6 years ago, before the drinking and the anger had consumed him. Go, he said quietly. Get her ready for school, but you're not going to work today. We need to talk. Zara nodded and slipped out of the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. Stella was standing in the hallway in her pajamas, her dark eyes wide with worry. Is Daddy mad again? She asked. He's just stressed about work, Zara said, kneeling down to her daughter's level. Let's get you dressed for school, okay? As Zara helped Stella into her school clothes, she tried to think of a way out of the situation. If she didn't show up for work, Rosa would have to cover both shifts, and Mel would probably have to come in on his day off. She couldn't let her co-workers down, but she also couldn't risk Derek's rage escalating with Stella in the apartment. Mommy, you look sad, Stella said as Zara braided her hair. I'm just tired, sweetheart, but seeing your beautiful face always makes me feel better. Stella smiled and threw her arms around Zara's neck. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. When Mrs. Patterson knocked on the door, Zara answered it with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Morning, Zara. Ready for school, Miss Stella? Ready! Stella grabbed her backpack and gave Zara a quick hug goodbye. As soon as the door closed, the apartment felt different. Dangerous. Derek emerged from the bedroom, already dressed, his jaw set in the expression Zara had learned to fear. Now we can talk, he said. For the next hour, Derek alternated between accusations and threats. He was convinced that Zara was having an affair, that she was planning to leave him, that she thought she was too good for him. No matter how much she denied it, he kept pushing, his voice getting louder and his gestures more aggressive. I've been watching you, he said, pacing back and forth in their small living room. Following you to work, seeing how you act when you think no one's looking. The revelation that Derek had been stalking her at work made Zara's skin crawl. How long had he been watching? What else had he seen? You think I'm stupid? Derek continued. You think I don't notice how you've been different lately? More secretive, more distant? Zara knew she had to say something, but every word felt like walking through a minefield. I haven't been different, Derek. I've been working extra shifts to help with money. Don't lie to me. Derek's hand slammed against the wall near Zara's head, making her flinch. I saw you with that man in the suit. I saw how you looked at him. I look at all customers the same way. It's my job to be friendly. Your job is to serve coffee, not to flirt with men who have more money than I do. Derek's insecurity was showing through his anger. He had always been threatened by other men, but losing his job had made it worse. He felt powerless in every other area of his life, so he took out his frustration on the one person he could control. I would never cheat on you, Zara said, though the words felt hollow. She wasn't cheating, but she was keeping secrets. She was thinking about leaving. She was accepting help from another man. Prove it, Derek said suddenly. Call your boss right now and quit. If that job means nothing to you, if those customers mean nothing to you, then quit. Zara's heart stopped. Derek, we need the income, especially now. We'll figure something out. You can find work closer to home, somewhere I can keep an eye on you. The possessiveness in his voice made Zara's skin crawl. She thought about the pamphlets hidden in her purse, about Benjamin's offer of help, about the phone numbers for safe houses and legal aid. She thought about Stella, who deserved to grow up in a home without fear. I can't quit without notice, she said carefully. It would be unprofessional. Let me work today. Tell them I'm giving 2 weeks' notice. That way, I can get a good reference for the next job. Derek considered this, and for a moment, Zara thought he might agree. But then his expression hardened again. No, you call right now and quit, or I'll call them myself and tell them you're never coming back. Zara realized she was trapped. If she refused, Derek would escalate until someone got hurt. If she complied, she would lose her only source of income and her only connection to the outside world. Okay, she said quietly. I'll call. But as she reached for her phone, Zara made a different decision. Instead of calling the diner, she dialed the number on Benjamin's business card, which she had memorized days ago. The phone rang twice before a professional voice answered. Cross Industries, mister. Cross's office. Is Benjamin Cross available? Zara asked, her voice shaking. May I ask who's calling? Zara Hughes. He'll know who I am. Derek was watching her suspiciously. What are you doing? Call the diner. I'm calling my boss, Zara lied, hoping Derek couldn't hear the other end of the conversation. One moment, please, the voice said, and then Benjamin's familiar voice came on the line. Zara? Are you okay? I need to quit my job, she said, hoping he would understand the coded message. Effective immediately. I won't be able to come in today. There was a pause, and when Benjamin spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. I understand. Are you safe right now? No. I don't think 2 weeks' notice will be possible, Zara continued, aware that Derek was listening to every word. Where are you? At home, with my family. Is he there with you now? Yes, that's right. Benjamin's voice became urgent but quiet. Listen carefully. If you're in immediate danger, hang up and call 911. If you need help but it's not an emergency, can you get somewhere safe in the next few hours? Zara looked at Derek, who was nodding approvingly at what he thought was her resignation call. I think I can manage that, she said. The resources I gave you yesterday, do you still have them? Yes. Use them. Call the first number on the list and tell them Benjamin Cross referred you. They'll know what that means. Can you do that? Yes. I think so. Zara, I'm going to help you through this. You're not alone anymore. But right now, I need you to hang up and get yourself and your daughter to safety. Can you do that? Zara felt tears burning her eyes. For the first time in 2 years, someone was offering her real help, not just empty words or temporary fixes. Thank you, she whispered. I'll talk to you soon. I understand, Benjamin said. Take care of yourself. Zara hung up the phone and looked at Derek, who seemed satisfied with what he had heard. Good, he said. Now we can work on fixing our relationship without outside distractions. But Zara was no longer listening to Derek's words. Her mind was focused on the conversation she had just had, on the help that was finally within reach, and on the courage she would need to take the next step. For the first time in months, she had a plan. And for the first time in years, she had hoped that this nightmare might actually end. 3 hours after the phone call, Zara found herself sitting in a small coffee shop 6 blocks from her apartment, nervously checking her watch every few minutes. Derek had finally left to meet some friends at a bar, giving her the first opportunity in days to leave the apartment alone. She had told him she needed to buy groceries, and he had reluctantly agreed, but not before warning her to be back within 2 hours. That gave her barely enough time to make the call Benjamin had suggested and figure out her next move. Zara pulled out the pamphlet Benjamin had given her and dialed the number for the Women's Crisis Center. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to redial twice. Safe Haven Crisis Center. This is Michelle. How can I help you? Hi, Benjamin Cross referred me. He said you would know what that means. There was a brief pause, then Michelle's voice became warmer and more focused. Yes, I understand. Are you safe right now? For the moment, but I don't have much time. Okay, let's work quickly. What's your name? Zara Hughes. Zara, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me, okay? Are you currently in an abusive relationship? The word abusive hung in the air. Zara had never said it out loud before, never applied that label to her situation, but hearing it from someone else made it real in a way that was both terrifying and liberating. Yes, she whispered. Do you have children? A daughter, she's 5. Is she safe right now? She's at school, but she lives with us, so… Zara's voice trailed off. I understand. Zara, Mr. Cross called our center this morning and explained your situation. He's offered to personally fund emergency housing and legal assistance for you and your daughter. This is not something we see often, but Mr. Cross has worked with us before on similar cases. Zara was stunned. He called you? Yes. He's very concerned about your safety. But I want you to understand that any help we provide is completely confidential and independent. Mr. Cross may be funding it, but he has no access to your information or your location unless you choose to share it with him. I don't understand why he would do this for a stranger. Michelle's voice was gentle. Some people believe that when you have the power to help, you have a responsibility to use it. From what Mr. Cross told me, he's seen enough signs to know you're in serious danger. Zara looked around the coffee shop, paranoid that Derek might walk in at any moment. What kind of help are you talking about? We can place you and your daughter in a safe house tonight. It's a secure location where your partner cannot find you. We can provide legal assistance to help you file for protective orders and begin divorce proceedings. We can help you find new employment and eventually permanent housing. It sounded too good to be true. What's the catch? No catch. But I need you to understand that once you leave, you cannot go back. If you return to your partner after filing protective orders, it becomes much harder to protect you legally. This has to be a permanent decision. Zara closed her eyes, thinking about Stella. Her daughter deserved a life without fear, without having to tiptoe around an angry man, without learning that love meant walking on eggshells. How soon can you do this? Today, if necessary, but we need to plan carefully. When will your daughter be home from school? The bus drops her off at 3:30. Mrs. Patterson, our neighbor, usually walks her to our apartment. We can intercept that. Have Mrs. Patterson bring your daughter directly to the crisis center instead. Can you trust Mrs. Patterson? Zara thought about the elderly woman who had always been kind to Stella, who had sometimes looked at Zara with concern and asked if everything was okay. I think so. Good. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go home, pack only essential items for you and your daughter. Medications, important documents, a few clothes. Hide the bags somewhere your partner won't find them. When your daughter gets to Mrs. Patterson, you call us, and we'll send someone to pick up both of you. What about Derek, when he realizes we're gone? That's where the legal protection comes in. By tomorrow morning, we'll have protective orders in place. He won't be able to contact you or your daughter legally. Zara felt overwhelmed by how quickly things were moving, but also relieved that finally, someone was taking action. Zara! Michelle's voice brought her back to the conversation. Are you still there? Yes, I'm here. I'm scared. That's completely normal. What you're doing takes tremendous courage, but you're not doing it alone. After hanging up with Michelle, Zara sat in the coffee shop for a few more minutes, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of one phone call, her entire life had changed. By tonight, she and Stella would be in a safe house. By tomorrow, they would be free. The walk home felt surreal. Zara found herself noticing details she had ignored for months. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the sound of children playing in a nearby park, the feeling of walking without fear for the first time in years. Back at the apartment, Zara moved quickly and quietly. She found an old duffel bag in the back of the closet and began packing essentials. Stella's favorite stuffed animal, some clothes, their important documents that she had hidden in a shoebox under her bed. She packed her mother's jewelry, the only valuable things she owned, and the small amount of cash she had managed to save. As she packed, Zara's phone rang. Benjamin's name appeared on the screen. Hello? Zara, I hope you don't mind me calling. I wanted to make sure you were okay, and that you were able to reach the crisis center. I talked to Michelle. She explained what you did. Zara's voice was thick with emotion. I don't understand why you're helping me. Benjamin was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something personal? Okay. My mother was in a situation similar to yours when I was young. She stayed with my father for years because she didn't think she had any other choice. She didn't have resources, didn't have money, didn't have anyone who understood what she was going through. Zara sat down on the edge of her bed, still holding the phone. What happened? She eventually found the courage to leave, but it was much harder than it needed to be. She had to start over with nothing, and it took years for us to feel safe again. Benjamin's voice was heavy with old pain. I swore that if I ever had the power to help someone in that situation, I would. Did you know? When you first saw me at the diner? I suspected. I've learned to recognize the signs. The way you held yourself, the careful way you spoke, the makeup that didn't quite cover everything. And I could see in your eyes that you were fighting for more than just yourself. Zara wiped tears from her cheeks. Your mother, is she okay now? She's wonderful. She remarried a man who treats her like a queen, and she runs a nonprofit that helps women start small businesses after leaving abusive relationships. She always says that surviving made her stronger, but it was the people who helped her that made survival possible. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just promise me that you'll take care of yourself and your daughter. And someday, when you're ready, maybe you can help another woman who needs it. After they hung up, Zara finished packing and hid the bag in the back of Stella's closet, behind a pile of toys. Then she sat down to write a letter to Mrs. Patterson, explaining the situation and asking for her help. At 2:45 p.m., Zara knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door. The elderly woman answered with a warm smile that faded when she saw Zara's serious expression. "Zara? Is everything all right, dear?" "Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you for a very big favor, and I need you to trust me even though I can't explain everything right now." Mrs. Patterson studied Zara's face for a moment, then stepped back to let her into the apartment. "What do you need, honey?" Zara handed her the letter. "When Stella gets off the bus today, instead of bringing her to our apartment, I need you to take her to this address. Someone will be waiting for both of us there." Mrs. Patterson read the letter quickly, her expression growing more concerned with each line. When she finished, she looked up at Zara with eyes full of understanding. "How long has this been going on?" she asked quietly. "Too long," Zara whispered. "I knew something wasn't right. I could hear the yelling sometimes, and you always seemed so nervous." Mrs. Patterson reached out and took Zara's hand. "Of course I'll help. Stella is such a sweet child, and you're a good mother. You both deserve better." "Thank you," Zara said, tears flowing freely now. "Thank you so much." At exactly 3:30 p.m., Zara watched from her window as the school bus dropped Stella off at the corner. Mrs. Patterson was waiting there, just as they had planned. Zara saw her daughter's confused expression when Mrs. Patterson explained they were going somewhere different today, but Stella trusted the older woman and took her hand without argument. Zara grabbed the hidden duffel bag and left the apartment for the last time. As she walked down the stairs, she thought about all the mornings she had crept down these same steps, trying not to wake Derek. All the nights she had climbed them, knowing what was waiting for her at the top. She would never have to be afraid of these stairs again. The crisis center was a nondescript building in a quiet neighborhood. When Zara walked through the doors, she was greeted by Michelle, who looked exactly like her voice had sounded. Warm, professional, and completely unflappable. "Zara? I'm Michelle. You made it." "I made it," Zara repeated, hardly believing it herself. "Your daughter is already here. She's in our children's area playing with some toys and having a snack. She's asked about you several times, but she seems okay." Zara felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Can I see her?" "Of course. But first, I need you to sign some paperwork, and I want to explain what happens next." As Michelle led her through the process, Zara felt like she was signing her name to a new life. Protection orders, custody documents, housing applications. Each signature was another step away from Derek, and another step toward freedom. "There's one more thing," Michelle said as they finished the paperwork. "Mr. Cross asked me to give you this." She handed Zara a sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a key. "Zara," the note read, "I hope you never have to use this, but if you ever need anything, a job, a safe place to stay, help with Stella's education, this key opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Inside, you'll find enough resources to start over as many times as necessary. You are stronger than you know, and you deserve a life filled with joy instead of fear. Benjamin." Zara stared at the key, overwhelmed by the generosity of a man who barely knew her but had chosen to change her life. "Mommy!" Stella's voice broke through her thoughts as her daughter ran across the room and threw herself into Zara's arms. "Hi, baby," Zara said, holding her tight. "How are you doing?" "Mrs. Patterson said we're going on an adventure. Is that true?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're starting a new adventure. Just you and me." "Will Daddy come with us?" Zara looked down into her daughter's innocent face and made a promise she intended to keep. "No, baby. It's going to be just us from now on. Is that okay?" Stella considered this seriously, then nodded. "As long as I'm with you, Mommy, I'm okay with anything." As they settled into their temporary room at the safe house that night, Zara tucked Stella into bed and sat beside her in the darkness. "Mommy," Stella whispered, "are we safe now?" "Yes, baby, we're safe now." And for the first time in years, Zara actually believed it. 6 months later, Zara Hughes stood in the doorway of her new apartment, watching Stella chase butterflies in the small garden behind their building. The late afternoon sunlight caught her daughter's laughter, creating a sound that still amazed Zara. Pure, unguarded joy from a child who no longer had to whisper or walk on eggshells. "Mommy, look!" Stella called out, cupping her hands around a yellow butterfly. "It's not scared of me." "That's because you have a gentle heart, baby," Zara replied. The past 6 months had been transformative. Derek was serving 6 months for violating the protective order, and a permanent restraining order would keep him away when released. Zara now worked at a community center, helping other domestic violence survivors. Benjamin's safety deposit box had provided the financial stability she needed to build this new life. "Miss Zara?" A familiar voice called from the garden gate. Zara looked up to see Benjamin Cross walking toward them, carrying a wrapped package and wearing the same gentle smile she remembered from those mornings at the diner. "Mr. Benjamin!" Stella squealed, running to him with the uninhibited affection of a child who associated him with safety and kindness. "Hello, Miss Stella," Benjamin said, scooping her up for a hug. "How's my favorite butterfly hunter? I caught 3 today. Well, I didn't really catch them, I just made friends with them." "That's even better," Benjamin said, setting her down gently. "Making friends is always better than catching things." Zara watched the interaction with a warmth she was still learning to trust. Over the past months, Benjamin had become an unexpected but steady presence in their lives. Not intrusive, never demanding, but always available when they needed support. He had helped Stella enroll in a better school, attended her first parent-teacher conference when Zara was too nervous to go alone, and had somehow managed to be both generous and respectful of their independence. "What brings you by today?" Zara asked as Stella ran back to play with her new butterfly friends. "2 things, actually." Benjamin held up the wrapped package. "First, I have something for Stella. It's her 6-month anniversary of being brave." 6-month anniversary? The day she started her new adventure. I thought that deserved recognition. Stella tore open the package to reveal a beautiful children's book about a little girl who learns to fly by believing in herself. The inscription inside read, "To Stella, who taught me that the bravest people are often the smallest ones. Keep flying. Mr. Benjamin." "I love it." Stella hugged the book to her chest. "Will you read it to me?" "I would be honored to," Benjamin said. "But first, I need to talk to your mom about something important." Stella settled onto the garden bench with her new book, and Benjamin turned to Zara with an expression that was both serious and excited. "What's the second thing?" Zara asked. "I have a job offer for you. A real one, not charity." Zara raised an eyebrow. "I already have a job." "I know, and you're doing amazing work at the community center. But I think you could help even more people if you had different resources." Benjamin pulled out a folder. "Cross Industries is starting a foundation for domestic violence survivors. We need someone to run it who understands the issue from experience. Job training, housing, legal aid, everything to help women rebuild their lives." Zara stared at the folder. "Benjamin, I don't have a college degree or business experience. You have something better. You understand this from the inside. I've watched you at the crisis center. You have a gift for this work." The salary figure made her gasp. "This is too much." "It's what the position is worth. You'd be the director, overseeing social workers and counselors, developing programs." Stella looked up from her book. "Mommy, are you crying?" Zara wiped her eyes, not realizing tears had started flowing. "Happy tears, baby. Sometimes grown-ups cry when something wonderful happens. Is something wonderful happening?" "I think so," Zara said, looking at Benjamin. "But it's a big decision. Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." "Why is this so important to you?" Zara asked. Benjamin watched Stella play. "Because some problems need more than money. They need understanding. You lived this experience. You can help other women not just survive, but transform their pain into strength." "What about Stella? Long hours? Travel?" "The foundation includes childcare and flexible scheduling. Stella would have access to excellent schools and activities." "I don't need time to think," Zara said suddenly. "The answer is yes. You're right. I understand this from the inside. Maybe that's exactly what's needed." That evening, as they prepared Stella's spaghetti dinner together, Benjamin shared something unexpected. "I wasn't supposed to be at the diner that first day. My meeting was canceled, and I ducked in from the rain." "Just coincidence?" Zara asked. "I call it the day my life started making sense," he said, watching Stella proudly serve her creation. After dinner, Stella showed Benjamin her drawings. The evolution was clear. Dark scribbles had transformed into bright pictures of their new life, including one of 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's me, Mommy, and Mr. Benjamin," Stella explained. "We're a family." "Stella, Mr. Benjamin has his own life," Zara said gently. "But he's our family, too. Family just has to love each other," Stella replied with 5-year-old wisdom. Later, as Benjamin prepared to leave, Zara walked him to the door. "Thank you for everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For believing I could be more than I thought possible. Thank you for trusting me when trust was the hardest thing for you." "Benjamin," she said as he turned to leave. "Stella was right. You are family now." "I was hoping she was right," he smiled. "I can't imagine my life without both of you in it." As Zara locked the door, from responsibility, not fear, she reflected on their journey. 6 months ago, she was trapped and hopeless. Tonight, she was a mother raising her daughter in safety, a professional ready to help others find freedom, and a woman who had learned that the most important relationships are built on respect and shared purpose. She checked on Stella, sleeping peacefully with her new book, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, baby. Tomorrow is going to be another beautiful day." For the first time in her adult life, she believed it completely.